Welcome everyone to this week's X-Men Roundtable. We have Larry, Dustin, and myself, Peter, and we are thrilled to have a guest with us, Jill Kaufman. Jill, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And today's topic is forgiveness, which we have not delved into yet. And it's a very important topic. So we hope those of you that see this and are listening really have some heartfelt takeaways. So there's so many different aspects of forgiveness. We all view it a little bit differently, but I know for me, it's so important in the realm of divorce when you're going through it. You have all that anger, the frustration, the regret, the resentment, the worry. How do you form the foundation to start to move forward? And for me, it's forgiveness. But what other thoughts would any of you like to sort of jump in with to start in this important topic?
Well, forgiveness is, I think, the first step toward healing or understanding you need to forgive. I didn't realize that until I received my own, received a handwritten letter from my ex explaining how she forgave me. That made me do a lot of navel gazing and introspective investigation, and it's actually quite a long process. A process that I think I'm still in.
Sure. Well, Larry, you talked about that, receiving that letter made you realize now you could forgive yourself. Because I think there's different aspects of forgiveness. Everybody automatically thinks, oh, forgiving the ex, which is probably one of the hardest parts, but forgiving yourself is such an important first step.
Right.
Whether anyone realizes it or not, we've all played a role leading up to the divorce situation.
And as it was pointed out in a previous conversation, that letter was literally a handwritten permission slip for me to start forgiving myself. And I found that to be a very powerful tool to give myself permission to do other things as well.
I love this quote. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
And so I always think about that when you think about forgiveness, because if you're holding on to your anger, you're not hurting the other person. You're really hurting yourself, and you really want to forgive and let go of that anger for yourself. I think it's so powerful to think about it like that, because anger, you're consumed with. I was just talking with a client who was saying how her ex is constantly like calling her, texting her, and just taking up so much of his mental space with her, and it's like anger and holding on and not forgiving takes so much mental energy, and that, you're really not doing yourself a service by holding on to all of that.
I couldn't agree more. And all that anger, that pent up frustration, anger, regret, resentment, not only hurts yourself, but it impacts your children in a really negative way. And you're setting a terrible example for them. And often, and we were just talking about this before we went live, but so many times the impact children have from the divorce of their parents, they carry it with them for the rest of their lives, not even knowing it. So I think forgiveness is huge, to be able to let go, form that foundation. For me, it helped me to start to remain calm, and it really, really made a difference. Dustin, I know you've got some thoughts. You've always got something to share that's important. So,
well, we, like you were saying before, Peter, you forgive yourself, and you asked, you forgive the other person, but then the third part would be having the other person forgive you. Was something I hadn't ever contemplated prior to you saying that, because you don't see it as, well, what do I need to be forgiven for? I'm fine. I did my part, but that's just the problem, isn't it? You did your part, and that's how you got there in the first place. So being able to understand that see things from the other person's perspective of, well, okay, I thought I was doing great. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, but clearly I wasn't. Clearly I wasn't. And so that other person has to, like in Larry's situation, they forgave you. So that was, like you said, permission to kind of do that to yourself. But so yeah, it's a very wide, like kind of spherical, three-dimensional kind of a concept of forgiveness. It's not just binary. It's not you and me. It's like this. It impacts everybody involved. And you know, we also talked about if forgiveness equaled closure, and we never really kind of close the loop on that. And I think closure is different for everybody too. Everybody has a different perspective of what that means to them. You know, for me, it just means having peace of mind about the history that you have with your ex, the future that you have with your ex, really, you know, having as healthy of a relationship with that person going forward as you can with someone and your children. I mean, and if you can live a kind of a well-adjusted life, I guess that's what closure means to me is, you know, moving forward. Is it something that I get hung up on all the time? No, it's not. So I guess to me, there's closure there. You know, I'm good. I'm fine. And then some psychologists would say, well, you say you're good and you're fine, but you're really not, are you? So, so yeah, forgiveness is the start of all of that, and being able to look inside yourself and say, okay, if I was wrong, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I was wrong. Please forgive me. And hopefully we can move on and, you know, put this in our rearview mirror and progress from here and grow from here. That's, I think, how do you forgive someone? Like, that's the mechanics of it, right? Like, somebody might say, how do you do that? Well, that's how you do it. You just say, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry I hurt you. I'm really sorry I played a part in this. And I hope you can forgive me.
Yeah,
I also think time is part of this. Like, it's very hard to forgive someone when your emotions are really raw and it's just happened. And, you know, there's so much to process and to kind of figure out. And as time goes on, like, I don't think I have closure, but I definitely have forgiven and I moved on. You know what I mean? So, but that's because of time. You know, I was able to do that a couple years after the divorce, maybe 4 years. I wouldn't have been able to do that in the first year or two, no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, until, as you were saying, the main person all that anger, resentment hurts is yourself, the person in the mirror. So to me, the combination of the fact that I didn't want to hurt myself anymore, and it can also impact your health, and my then 3-year-old daughter, so your children, those are the two biggest reasons why it's so important to forgive. And I think it's important to understand, what is your reason why you would even want to forgive? And those were my two big reasons. And being able to let go because of forgiveness helped me to form a foundation of more of inner peace and calmness, which helped me to stop reacting to all the little things that used to trigger me, that the ex would say, because boy, she knew how to trigger me. And once I stopped that, everything started to shift. And I think, going one step further, part of the reason things began to shift in a positive way, you know, over time, we each subconsciously develop expectations for the reaction that we're going to get, and we know how to trigger the other person. So I know in our situation, once I committed to remaining calm, and I remember the very next day sitting at my former breakfast table, and the ex said something that normally would have set me off like that. And I just sat there looking at her, and that upset her. And she said, "What are you being so smug about?" And I simply said, "No, I'm not being smug. I realized our daughter is far too important for me to allow myself to continue to react in anger toward you. So I'm going to do my best to remain calm no matter what." And over the next 6 months, things began to shift, not immediately, but within a few weeks and over the next few months. And I really believe a lot of that was because the ex was no longer receiving the expected reaction she'd come to expect. So subconsciously, she had to shift in order to get more of what she wanted as well.
Can I say that something about that? It is so powerful when you realize that you have the control over the interaction. Because so many people I work with are like, well, she always triggers me, or he always says that. But you have complete control over how you're going to respond. And once you realize that and you take that control, you're not going to interact in the same way that you had before. So that is such a powerful thing to realize.
The other thing too with that, Jill, I mean, you can't control how another person feels. You can only control how you feel, right? So Peter, to your point about, your ex saying, why are you being so smug? Well, that's not that. It's just, I can only control how I feel about this. And your perception of my interpretation, or your interpretation of how I'm feeling right this, is your problem, not my problem, right? So you figure out what's going on in you, I'll figure out what's going on in me, and we'll be okay. Don't worry about me. I'm going to handle my own stuff. You worry about yourself,
Well, and to both of your points, Jill and Dustin, yes, the only person we can change or control is ourselves, right? But the irony is, the way to get somebody else to change their behavior, especially the reactive behavior, is to change what you've been doing. Mm-hmm. And when they're, again, no longer getting the expected results, they're really not getting what they want. And even having a conversation, asking the question, what do you really want? And for me, it was, what do you really want for our daughter? Because it made it bigger than both of us. And that's when we started to get a little bit more aligned. But
you find the commonality, you find those things that you have in common that you're trying to, accomplish together at some point. When it comes to your kids, I think that is always going to be the common thread, right? Like if we can get together on our kids, and I think if we can agree that we can disagree on everything, but as long as we're on the same page with the kids, that's the goal here,
And you can get closure by just, agreeing to that and being aligned with that sometimes.
Absolutely. So we're sort of getting toward the end. So Jill, Dustin, Larry, any final thoughts that you believe are important to share with our viewers today?
Well, it may not have anything to do with forgiveness, but what you alluded to, Peter, when you were acting so smug, you were using the classic Viktor Frankl approach of putting some space between you and the stimulus. And I think that, just taking that extra 2 seconds can make all the difference in your relationship between you and your ex. And it helps both of you gather your thoughts.
Yeah, very true.
I think for me, final thought would be for anyone looking, and no matter what stage of divorce you're in, if you're well past it or if you're in the middle of it or whatever, it's going to happen at some point where the word forgiveness comes up in your vocabulary, and you really have to, be prepared for something to be kind of unexpected about forgiveness, because there might be something that you don't see now that could show up and you're like, oh God, I did this. I did do this. It was me. I'm sorry, So take responsibility for your own forgiveness of that. I think it's important.
That's a good one.
And I just want to add that I think that it's all about, growth, personal growth, and what you can learn from, the situation, like Dustin, what you said about, taking responsibility, and what can I learn to do? Maybe, forgiving someone is something that's difficult for someone. And how can you grow? How can you take some step towards that personal growth?
Yeah, I think that those are all three excellent points. And my sort of last thought will be a little call to action for everyone. So challenge all of you watching, challenge the four of us here even to do this. Think of one at least small thing. What small thing in the role that you've played leading up to the situation as it is today, in the realm of your divorce, wherever it is, what is one small way that you can forgive yourself? Is it all the reactive, all the times you've reacted with anger to the ex? Is it not being present with your kids? What is it? Is it not respecting the other parent for the job they've done, parenting your kids? What is it? Step two, think of one small way you can forgive the ex. And for me, a huge part of that is realizing, don't take it personally. Whatever they've been doing, it's really not about you. And I know for me, that helped me to forgive. And the third and final step is, how are you going to shift and change from this point forward? Now that you're starting to form that foundation through forgiveness to remain calm. And remember, be clear on what it is you really want to create for your kids, but also for yourself, because it is a choice for how you move forward in this new version of the relationship with the ex. So what's one small way you can make that different? So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Jill, so much from our hearts. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
You really had some impacting insights. We appreciate that. Always good to see you, Larry and Dustin, and look forward to being back here next week.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.